Antoni Maria Fabrés y Costa, better known as Antoni Fabres, was an artist from Catalonia, Spain, a province that lies northeast of the Iberian Peninsula, to the south of the Pyrenees mountain range. In a recent showing of his works titled From Glory to Oblivion, his story was about to be retold as it should be. It would be a rebirth for the painter. Born in 1854, Antonio was the son of a draftsman, and his uncle a silversmith, so art appreciation was there already. By 13 he began art study in the Escola de la Llotja, an art and design school located in Barcelona. By the age of 21 he benefited from a grant that enabled him to study in Rome, which was the most recognized choice for concentrated art training at the time. He would align himself with the brilliant Maria Fortuny, who would be a leader of a style that combined realism and naturalism. Fortuny's influence would dominate a whole generation of artists, which included the great Henri Regnault, the very gifted French artist, also residing in Rome with his own stipend from the French government. Antonio followed closely Fortuny's lead, and when the elder painter died prematurely, Antonio would be the painter to help instruct the upcoming group of students looking to emulate the style that became so popular among the painters of the day. It was also a period where the Moorish costumes and accessories were found to be good picture subjects, and the general public and buyers were all too happy to see them. From the artist's viewpoint, the studios were filled with artifacts of swords and carpets, and attire which was a welcome aid to the design opportunity for study within the atelier. This fashion and its newness to the general public would continue throughout Europe for some time. It would be challenged by other schools of thought that needed something entirely new, and artists began to explore what was right before them for subjects in everyday life. Dinitti would be one of the early painters to explore that avenue. And still other popular themes that suited certain tastes were medieval themes, often of chivalry or romantic in nature. The field was therefore wide open, were many and varied. But Antonio would miss his native country, and by 1886 was back in Barcelona. He was 32. But that lasted just a few years before Paris was calling, the art capital of the world, where fortunes and honours could be made, particularly as many Americans were frequently buyers for their homes and estates. Antonio would prove to be a capable draftsman in every area of his art: painting, drawing, watercolour and sculpture. He would be devoted to the craftsmanship side of picture-making till the end of his life, an admirable trait, as too often an artist can be seduced to please the prevailing fashion, not always to the strength of his talents. His style, however, remained faithful to naturalism as the better choice for his output. Even when venturing to differing subjects, it was the craftsmanship side of his technique that remained constant and true. He was a much sought-after portrait artist as well, who above all gave a striking likeness to the sitter as the main element. His concern for light and a certain delicacy of touch led him to investigate how it influenced tone. In both interiors and single figures, his paintings could even be described as ultra-refined, as they are exceptionally well modelled. The expressions he was able to add to individual subjects are also quite striking. One feels the passion of the sitter, a difficult thing to master, yet he makes it all feel true, as in this portrait character study of a pleasant and joyous man with his tools of the trade. In other paintings the figures are very Whistleresque in their manner, a type of portrait that was not uncommon for many artists and popular for grand estates with large areas to decorate with a wall of works. John Sargent comes to mind as one whose very monumental portraits are typical. In the exhibition of 2019 we see the elegant grouping of his pictures. There is a grace of gesture and unpretentiousness of pose of each person, a grasp of the essentials, and the silhouette is well defined, and the linear use of the arabesque is a visual treat, all carefully designed. In this new century it is truly rewarding to see a reappraisal of the very best paintings by the 19th century greats. They were indeed standard-bearers of the very heights of artistic know-how, and there is no replacing quality once achieved. Fabres was true to his craft and taught others the same rudiments of solid craftsmanship, even while the tide began to erode the practice and achievements that were so difficult to master. Fabres was recognized almost everywhere he travelled. He was acclaimed in Barcelona, London, Paris, Vienna, and Lyon, so that by 1902 the Academia de San Carlos in Mexico City decided to replace their standard techniques with those of naturalism that were popular in Europe at the time. Antoni Fabres was proposed to take the place of Santiago Rebull as head of this distinguished institution, but over time some of his students went on to become what was later known as the post-revolutionary movement, and founded the more decorative style in Mexican art, and the faculty had a hard time adapting to his distinct style and disposition. So by 1907, then 54 years old, he returned to Rome. Fabres continued to be a painter of many interests and subjects. He was not one to be pigeonholed, as can sometimes happen, if not careful, as anyone knows. Once a line of work is pursued like animal painting. For instance, it becomes difficult when that plays out, or other painterly interests come into play, and the painter wants to move on, so the commercial aspect may be hard on the pocketbook. Fabres never wavered, however. His talent carried him through, whether by portrait art, or Moorish tribe people, or the Cavaliers, or simply everyday life. He was his own artist. During his Parisian years, he was no doubt ready to work, and his studio a place to entertain and make the necessary connections. In the photograph of Fabres' studio in Paris is displayed on one wall an immense collection of various weaponry and ancient firearms, and even 2 ancient suits of armour that were complete. On the floor, a leopard skin, and the Arabian ceramic shelves, exotic fabrics, and large easels. Without question, Fabres was an unusual character, but the French loved period pieces and the unusual or exotic. For the painter, all that was needed was a steady flow of paying customers. So the studio became an office, residence, and workshop together. Regular showings that may coincide with the yearly salons didn't hurt either. So all was well planned for the influx to Paris at this time. According to one observer, the only criticism that can be made of the painter's studio is that it does not give more significant offerings to keep up with demands. Pictures require time and some patience. It is also noteworthy in his life, the contradictory relationship that he maintained with his native city. At the end of his life, he was dealt a very unfortunate blow when in 1926 he decided to donate a large number of works to the Museu de Belles Arts de Barcelona, nowadays called Museu Nacional d'Art de Catalunya. In exchange for this generous donation of artworks, he asked the museum that a hall be built with his name. But the museum never built that hall, and although he protested several times, they could never settle the argument. So, as often is the case, artworks may sometimes be stored or moved too frequently before a permanent place can be found. This was the case with Antoni. Many of his finest efforts were moved from place to place, and unfortunately required restoration for some. Thankfully, the work being done today for him and for many other great painters is being carefully sought after and rescued for just such exhibits and a permanent resting place as with Fabres's paintings. The exhibition of 2019 was and is a virtuous step forward. Lastly, we hope you enjoyed reviewing the works of Antoni Fabres, and we hope many lost works will be discovered and available to see in the future. So with that, please remember to subscribe and add a like to help the channel. We have many more fine artists to share. So till next time, it's bye for now.